Hey guys, it's Charlene. Fall is one of my favorite seasons, and for today's card, it's all about fall. I'm using the Acorns background stamp, and I'm using these fun coordinating stencils that are going to let me color in all of the different parts of the images in the background stamp. So you can do this one of two ways. You can either start by stamping and then doing your stenciling, or you can do like I'm doing, which is I'm going to do my stenciling first and then my stamping. I'm using an adhesive mat to hold down my stencil, so that way I can put each stencil in the same place as I change out the layers. What's fun about these style of stencils is that you can use different colors in different areas, and you get to essentially create your own pattern paper, which is really amazing. So I've got some fun fall colors here. I've used some red and some orange. Now I'm coming in with some yellow and then some green. You can just use a small blender brush to get in there in each of the leaves. And these leaves on that background stamp, you're going to get the leaf detail, the lines and everything. Now I'm using the second layering stencil. Put it down in the exact same spot after I removed the first one, and I'm using a light gray color. It's kind of a grayish brown, and I'm using that for the bottom of the acorns, and then I'm going to use a darker shade that's also a grayish brown for the top of the acorns, and this also adds in their little tips on the acorns as well as a couple of little lines on the bases of the leaves. So now I have lined up my stamp so it's right on top, and I have stamped it with some black ink here, and I'm using some pigment ink, and it's just going down right over the top, and you're going to see it looks so gorgeous when it is all stamped. I'm using a pressure tool, just it makes it a little easier for me on these big background stamps, just to make sure I can get all of the ink down on top. So there it is. This is going to be the background for the card. I think it looks awesome. For the second part, I am using the fall rainbow layering stencils as well as the coordinating dies. Now I'm using these just for the sentiment portion, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to die cut out a piece of white cardstock for the sentiment, and then I'm using the stencils to add the sentiment. What's fun about this sentiment is, again, I can kind of change the colors on each of the letters as I see fit. And these stencils just go down in order. There's an A, a B, and a C. And you can see this is a really fun stencil set because you can make your own fall-inspired rainbows, which who doesn't love a rainbow? And a fall rainbow, you can use oranges and reds and yellows and golds, and they will look fantastic. But I thought this was a fun sentiment, so I wanted to try it out for my card. For this first layer here, I've got yellow for my H and my L, and then I did green for the O. And you can see I'm going to just put that next stencil on there. It makes it really easy to line up when you die cut out the sentiment first, but of course you don't have to do that. I just find it makes it a little bit easier for me. And for this next layer, I'm going to be using all oranges, and it's going to do the E as well as another one of the L's. And you can see I've just used a tiny little detail brush here, but you also could use a finger dauber. Whatever you have, it will work well. I mean, I could have even used a large brush and just not done as many colors. It's super easy and simple to use this style of layering stencil. So I've got my A there in the orange as well. Then I'm going to be able to pull this stencil up and put the third stencil down so I can do the remainder of the letters. Once I get that how I like it, I'm going to pull it up, and you can see they're just lined up perfectly there in the cutout, the die cut, and now I can put down my last stencil to do the F and the remaining two L's. What's also nice about using a stencil to do your sentiment is that you're not as limited with the type of inks that you use. Sometimes it can be kind of hard to stamp with distress oxides or things like that, but it's super easy to stencil with them, so you're not limited in the type of ink you use. You can do your sentiment in these big thick letters with distress oxide, with dye ink, with pigment ink, whatever you have in your stash that you want to use, and then it can coordinate with all the rest of your card, which is really nice. So now I've got the F and the L and the other L there in my orange, and I'm going to peel that up. And doesn't that look great? I think it's such a fun sentiment. Now for my stamped images, I'm using the new I Love Fall stamps. These are so cute, and there are coordinating dies that you can purchase. I love these girls on here. They're just so adorable and sweet. And then I'm going to be using the Color Me cardstock. I've gone ahead and stamped everything out, and I'm going to show you the coloring here. I am going to speed this up a little bit, but I'll talk to you about the coloring and what colors I used as well. Now for that pumpkin there, I used YR15 and YR16. I find that those colors work really well for pumpkins or squash or things like that. I've used some warm grays for my acorn. It's going to coordinate really well with those acorns that I ink blended earlier. I used W2, W5, and W7. For my pear, I'm using YG03 and YG17. These are kind of yellow-green. And then for my leaves, the first one is YG06, YG09. The second one, Y35, Y38. The third one, YR02 and R14. And the fourth one, Y11 and Y08. You also could use colored pencils or watercolors, whatever your preferred type of medium is. That's why I love coloring in images. They're so versatile, and these were really easy to color in. I only used a couple of colors on the smaller images. Now on this adorable girl, I have colored her in using C5 and C7 for her shoes. I find that those cool grays and the higher numbers, they look more black when you're done. So if you're trying to ever color something in to look black, those work really well. And then for her jacket, I have used R37 and RV69, kind of a maroon-ish scheme. For the leggings, C1 and C3. The earmuffs, C1, C3, C5, and C7. And then for the hair here, I went brunette and I did E43, E47, and E49. I feel like I'm kind of fashioning her after myself because this is what I want to be doing. I want to be all snuggled up for the fall with my tasty coffee. I don't know about you guys. So once I get that hair done, I can go ahead and color in her skin. I'm going to use E000, E50, and E21. And then for the cheeks, I'm adding some R11. And then for the coffee, I've used E43 and the cup YG03 and YG17. So there are two different girls that come in this stamp set, and then you get all of those fun little pieces that you can add to your card. There's also lots of really cute sentiments. For this card, I did use the stencils to create that sentiment that you saw a little bit earlier, but I am going to stamp one of the sentiments on the inside of the card. So next up, I am using these Stitch Scallops A2 dies. I've used the largest one to cut out a piece of white cardstock, and then I have cut down my background piece that you saw me do earlier because I'm going to fit it in to this die cut with the white scallop around the edge. I wanted to create this cute white border around the edge, so I've cut that piece just a little bit smaller than the stitched detail around the edge, so it's going to add a lot of interest on the card. Now I have a piece of kind of like a light lime green shimmer paper here that I'm using. It's a glitter shimmer paper, and you could use any color cardstock, any kind of cardstock. I thought I would just add a little bit of shininess and bling to my card by using the shimmer paper that I had in my scrap box. So I used that same paper to cut out the smallest of those stitched scallop dies, and I'm going to use that to ground my sentiment as well as the smaller images. So I've got my die cut there of the Hello Fall, and then I cut one out also in black glitter paper, and I'm going to use that behind the sentiment, I'm going to slightly offset it down and to the right, and that's going to create a little bit of a black shadow behind my sentiment. That's just going to help my sentiment to stand out a little bit more on my card. Now I'm popping everything up with some double-sided adhesive foam squares from Thermoweb, and I'm going to put this in the center of that stitch scallop die cut, and I'm going to glue down all of my little leaves using some liquid adhesive and just kind of poke them behind the Hello Fall sentiment. And once I have that done, I'm going to cut out 2 more of the stitch scallop die in white cardstock because I'm going to layer these up to add a little bit of dimension to this portion of my card. Now I didn't want to make this really thick because I am going to have my cute little girl go over the top, so I still wanted to be able to fit her on there. So I just had to plan out kind of the levels of my foam and how I was going to get everything on top of each other. Now I've used some liquid adhesive and I'm going to glue down that background. I think those leaves and acorns are so cute. They just scream fall. I love it. So now I can glue down my sentiment. I've got it all ready to go with those extra layers of cardstock. And again, that's just going to give it a tiny bit of dimension there. It's going to add some interest to the card. It's going to draw your eye down to that sentiment area. Now I've got a little bit thicker foam tape from Thermoweb on the back of my cute girl, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere her right over the top of all of that other stuff. Last but not least, I'm coming in here with a black marker, and I'm just going to put a little dot in the center of my A and in the center of my O. Now I can finish off the inside of my card. Like I said, I am using one of those sentiments from the I Love Fall stamp set. Super cute. And then I'm going to add the remainder of those colored images, the pumpkin, the pear, and the acorn. And then I had a little strip here of the background left over, so I'm just hand cutting a flag on here. You just cut up the middle and then you cut in from each side to that middle point that you've cut. And then I'm going to glue that along the right hand side of my card so it kind of draws your eye down to those other little images that I have glued in the corner. This adds very, very little bulk to the inside of your card, but I think it makes the inside of the card look so fun. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe as well as the notification bell so that I can continue bringing you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.